All right, Mr. Anderson, you expressed to me that there's an issue with, or you had some questions about the quality of your water. What I'm going to do now is go through some simple water tests. I'll explain what I'm doing as I do it. If you have any questions, stop me and let's discuss it. The first thing I'm going to do is let the water run for a bit. I want water that is freshly pumped, or in this case, coming straight from the municipal supply. I can tell by the water temperature when I get water that it hasn't been sitting in pipes. I want water that is fresh from the source, not anything that's been changed by its contact with the plumbing system itself, and its composition and its chemistry not altered by the plumbing. So I want water as it comes into the house. It's nice and cold now on this January day, so that I know I have freshly pumped water. What I'm going to do is, using my measuring device here, get a specific amount of water for the hardness test. I will be testing the hardness of the water first. The hardness test is an indicator of how much mineral content there is in the water. It's one piece of the puzzle that we're going to use to determine ultimately if there are any issues with your water, what we can best do to correct those issues. So the hardness test would be one portion of that. As you can see, our sample is turning pink. Now in the hardness test, when we start with a pink sample, we're going to be using this titrant solution. What this solution does is each drop of this solution is an indicator. What I'm going to do is add drops until I go from this pinkish color to a violet blue color. When I get that temperature change, I know I'm done adding drops. Each drop is the equivalent of 1 grain of hardness. 1 grain of hardness is just a unit of measure. As I said, it's one part in the puzzle. When we get all the pieces put together, we can then make a determination on what's best for your type of water. So I'm going to add 1 drop at a time. There's 1, no color change. 2, no color change. 3, no color change. 4, 5, 6, 7, starting to get a color change. You can see how the color went towards blue. And I think at 8 drops, that's about as much color change as we're going to get. So using that method, I know that we have 8 grains of hardness. That is 8 grains of mineral content in the water. That's portion number 1 of what we need to ascertain here. Portion number 2 would be, what is the iron content of the water? So again, using my test kit, I would just get the specific or the specified amount of water in my sample. Using my iron reagent. By the way, the reason I'm letting the water run continuously is so that it's not being altered by the pipe itself. I know there's copper pipe in this house, and I don't want the copper in the pipe reacting with the water to alter my results. Trust me, we're not going to use that much water that it's going to impact your well or your water bill. So in this case, I've got the pre-measured amount of water that's in the sample that I just took. I then add the pre-measured sample of iron reagent. Shake it up a little bit. And if you had an iron problem, typically I would be looking for shades of orange, some type of shade of orange. And you can see here in this particular sample on this white background, you have no orange colors. So you have no iron in this water. Sometimes I'll let that sit up on something white, let that color develop. Sometimes it can take a couple minutes for the color to develop. I can already tell just from experience that this sample is going to be iron-free. So that's not an issue here. The next thing I would be checking for, now that I've let the water run long enough, and I know I've got freshly pumped water, is the pH. The pH measures the acidity of the water. If the water is acidic, as I said, I know you have copper pipes. If the water is acidic, acid in the water will actually degrade or dissolve the copper pipes themselves. So from a plumbing standpoint, we are very concerned as plumbers about the quality of the water that goes through your pipes so that you don't have leaks. potential piping failures, potential catastrophic failures that result in property damage or anything like that. So in this particular test, I'm using the same predetermined amount of water. I'm going to use 6 drops of this wide-range pH solution, and I'm looking for a specific type of color for this sample to develop. So let me put the 6 drops in there first. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, I have 6 drops in this sample. I can swirl it around a little bit. There's my color. At this point I'll turn that off so that you can better hear me. Now I'm going to use what's called a color wheel. The only thing I'm doing is looking through various color options to determine, depending on what color that sample is, will tell me what the pH of that water is. Now, I do know from experience that you don't have an issue here. You can see that water is about an 8.0 pH, which is slightly alkaline, but it could easily be argued that it's 7.5, which is exactly perfect on the pH scale. So you have no issues with your water in regards to pH. The water is not acidic. It's not going to be harmful to your plumbing. It's not going to be harmful to your pipes. And you have no iron. We can see we let this set long enough now that no color developed. You see that against the white background. So in this instance, you don't have any iron problems either, which is good because iron can be problematic. We can certainly treat it, but it sometimes can be difficult to treat it economically. The next and final thing that we're going to test for, we know you're on a well, so we're not going to bother testing for chlorine. That would be a different test, and we have certainly the reasons to be concerned about that, but since you're on a well, we don't. The next thing we're going to test for is parts per million of TDS. TDS stands for total dissolved solids. It's just a measurement in parts per million of material that is dissolved in the water. The hardness would be a component of that number, but only one component of that number. This test doesn't tell us, by the way, what's in the water specifically. It just tells us what is in the water totally combined in a dissolved state. So in this case, the only thing we're measuring with this is the continuity of the water. Ultra-pure water does not conduct electricity. This water is not ultra-pure, so it will conduct electricity. This device just tells us what the conductivity of the water is. And it looks like we're at about 170 parts per million TDS. I know from experience, because 1 part per million equals 17 grains, 17 to 19 grains, I know most of your TDS here is from the hardness in the water. So there's not a lot else in this water. We have proven that with the iron test if you didn't have any iron. We have proven that the pH is not, the water is not corrosive, so if there were any other minerals in the water, that it would not be dissolved by that low pH. So in this particular instance, through the things that I've discovered by testing your water, I would say the only thing that you could possibly benefit from here would be a water softener. At 8 grains of hard, that's considered hard water by the water conditioning industry. It will inhibit soap's ability to make lather. It will inhibit your cleaning products from cleaning properly if you have a white crusty buildup in this area of your fixtures or underneath this area on your faucets. I see a little bit there. Shower heads in particular. Any place where the water exits a faucet, if there's a white crusty buildup there, that's usually from mineral deposits. If you have ladies in the household that complain about their hair coming out kind of flat and dingy and kind of crusty feeling, white clothes not coming out white, not coming out clean, hardness inhibits soap's ability to make lather, therefore you don't get effective cleaning. In that case, I would recommend in this instance, if you're so inclined and concerned about those particular issues, dry skin issues would be another thing, then I would certainly recommend a water softener. So let me go out to my truck, I'll get some literature for you, and we'll explore that further.